Hey folks, welcome back. Tim here, Gamiviti. Got a quick one today. Gonna be doing an install on a GX460. So had some requests for this install video in particular. I'm in the shop now waiting for the customer to roll up. So let me show you what I've done so far. I've got my 6 towers prepped and ready to go. These 2 are gonna go in front. These are gonna go in the middle. These are gonna go in the back. The difference there is I ran that top piece behind the bottom piece. That's my tip for pretty much all of these roof channel racks. It pushes this top piece a little bit closer to the middle of the truck because your truck kind of tapers in as it goes backwards. So that's why we do that. It gives you a little more clearance with the slots. Got the rack here set up on buckets, and I got the fairing on already. That's a great one to do while it's still on the ground. A lot easier to do than when it's up on the truck. This guy's gonna get a couple grids. So a few options on location there. So I'm waiting for the customer to get there. Once we figure out exactly where he wants them, we're gonna bolt those on together. And then we're gonna put the rack on the truck. Okay, truck's here, and next move is pull this factory rack off. This is the easiest one there is to remove. Just take a little screwdriver. It's just like a little battery cover. Just pry these up, and they come right out. And then you have some 12mm bolts to remove. So it's the same deal as 200 series. You just want to be careful to not push down as you are torquing these things out of there. But other than that, just take your time and back all those bolts out. Okay, so we're on the front of the car, passenger side. Here's our holes. Now these towers have 4 slots in them, right? And so there's technically 2 ways you could do it. Either shifted back like this or shifted forward like this. And this is the way you do it. So on the GX460s, you want all the towers shifted forward towards the front of the vehicle. It's gonna go just like that. And what you'll realize is that's gonna land right on that rubber strip. So we need to trim like 2mm off of this piece of rubber. Really easy to do. I'll show you. A little clipper here, and I'm just going to lift this up, and really tough without a third hand, but I'm just going to clip that with the clip. See if I can get a picture of that. There we go. And it's mostly rubber all the way through, but right in the middle is a little wire that you're going to run into, and that's why the clipper makes it easier than a utility knife. There you go. You can see the little wire and the piece I took off. That's it. Do that on both sides. Okay, so same deal as the other towers. We got our rubber sealing washers on the bottom. Little dab of our Dynaflex non-hardening polyurethane sealant. And we're doing that on every one of them. So you can wiggle these. If you twist the wrench, you can wiggle the bolt sideways to get it to line up with those holes. And then basically you're just going to get one started, get the other started, and then feed them all down. You don't want to tighten it, but just get it sort of snug. We may need to shift it a little bit to get it to line up with the rack, but that's what that looks like. And you can see the clearance now we have on that rubber strip. Looking real good, so we'll get all 6 bolted up. Okay, so we've got all 6 towers on. I'm on the driver's side now. You can see how those are shifted forward. And I got a moving blanket up here. If you don't have one of these, you could use some of the foam that came with your rack as protection. One thing you'll notice is I don't have the center screws used. I want full adjustability here. Makes it a lot easier. We can put those in later just to make sure that these are the same side to side, but it's not necessary to put that in. It actually makes it go a little faster without it. Last comment is, one difference on these Gamiviti towers you'll notice is they go into the channels here. So a lot of towers will have a flat plane here, and then they just spacer it up here with a bunch of washers and spacers. I really like how we've developed this where it's a nice tight clamp to the roof. You don't have that moment of that bolt. You don't have a lot of leverage to make that thing twist. So it's been working really, really well. Been happy with how these have turned out. So anyway, let's lift the rack on and see what happens. So the rack's up there. The next thing you want to do is open up the back window and make sure we have a gap. You can see there's a gap right there. You can also check the gap with the satellite antenna. It all should just barely fit, which is a good thing. And that happy spot is going to be right in the middle of this back slot. That basically sets your position. So it's all about getting these base towers shifted forward, middle slot here, plenty of clearance there, Plenty of clearance there. Next move then is grab bolts and put bolts, 2 bolts through every one of those plates. We got our bolts in, and it says bolts only. We'll do the nuts later. On the front plate, we're on that middle and outside slot right in the middle of the plate. On the middle plate, same location this way, but we're shifted back 1 right there. And then on the back plate, of course, those are a little bit more inset. So got all 6 towers, we got bolts through everything. Now it's time to put the washers and nuts on. Okay, we got our washers and nuts on. You can see everyone has a washer, lock washer, and nut on it. There's the back. And on this rack, that back tower is actually set in the height. It's that top piece sitting on top of the base. So really don't need to put a center bolt through there because this is already as low as it's gonna go. You could of course raise the rack if you wanted to. In the front, I've tightened this nut just to where I've compressed the lock washer. And that's because I wanna squeeze that tower nice and tight to the rack, because my next move then is gonna be to set the height and make sure that gap across the front is how I like it. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna push this up, and as I can see these holes are lining up, and I'm gonna put this little 1/4-20 in the 3rd highest position. So I can, just like that. Right. So I'll show you what that looks like from this side. I've got the same on that side, and the result is my gap across the front. You can get a finger through there. There we go. And that's pretty good. Let's put the fairing on double check. So there's our fairing gap, which looks pretty decent. It's a 1/2 inch or so. Might be possible to cheat this down a little bit. We're gonna run it like this because it's safe. We don't want the fairing touching the body at all. But to adjust that, you basically would have to remove that little center bolt and then loosen these 2 tower bolts. Also loosen the bolts that go through the top to allow everything to slide. And then you can by hand just move this down a little bit to wherever you like it and dial in that gap. So when you do that, you want to loosen every tower though, because everything needs to work together. But for now, we're happy with how this looks. Nice safe gap there. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten this up. All right, so now we're ready to tighten this up. And the sequence is to tighten the ones going into the truck first, the 6mm socket head bolts. That keeps the tower in position. The next thing we're gonna tighten are gonna be these 2 top bolts. And that's gonna pull the tower up tight to the rack. So step 1, we push the tower down tight to the truck. Step 2, pull the tower up tight to the rack. The last thing we'll tighten then will be the 2 that go through the center of the tower, which basically squeezes the tower pieces together. We do that and nothing is under load, nothing's twisted, everything's working together, and it'll be all nice and happy for a long time. And that's it. We got it all bolted up. We got the plastic panels back on there, and everybody's happy driving away. So thanks for staying with me on this one. Let me know what else you want to see, of course, and send me your comments. See you again on the next one.